Welcome back. Shelves are running empty when it comes to eggs. Stores are reportedly forced to ration eggs, and South Africans are already paying higher prices. What mechanisms are in place to ensure that the pricing of eggs in the country are within the country's regulations? To discuss this, we are now joined by the Competition Commission's Chief Economist, James Hodge. James, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. I don't know if you were privileged enough to have eggs this morning, but a lot of people, while they have the money to pay for their eggs, unfortunately the shelves are running empty.
Well, I was lucky enough to have an egg this morning, but I don't think I'll be getting them for next week. But you're absolutely right. There's been a crisis with the avian flu, and in fact that crisis has hit the chickens laying eggs more than it has, in fact, those that are used for chicken meat. So as we understand, about 5 million laying chickens have been slaughtered in this avian flu outbreak. And this is one where we are genuinely self-sufficient, and so the imports may not bring immediate relief. And we also understand that the timeline to replace those laying chickens is going to take far longer than it would for the chicken meat as well. So there is an immediate crisis, as you rightly pointed out, and access is one thing. So we are encouraged by the fact that some of the retailers have already started rationing, because I think from our perspective, and we've seen this at the beginning of COVID when there were shortages of other products and certain foodstuffs, but the concern is that this is just made available to wealthy customers, and it's not in fact made available to poorer customers who become a lot more reliant on eggs as a source of protein in light of the cost increases for other protein sources as well. So we certainly are glad that is starting to happen, but also want to make sure from our laws that there isn't any price gouging and exploiting the situation to put up the price of eggs astronomically.
And from the information that you have at your disposal currently, when it comes to the issue around price gouging, perhaps maybe you have not made that particular finding as yet or evidence that points that direction. What about the economic fundamentals, supply and demand? And because of the lack of supply, you find that there is an increase in the price of eggs. Are you able to determine at what particular rate or what particular level would the Competition Commission then say that now it has become price gouging?
Well, the measure we've used previously, and which we have case precedent, and that's even outside of pandemic regulations, is that if you increase your margins, certainly at a retail level, but also upstream, if you increase your margins, so your prices go up faster than your costs, then we will come after you for price gouging. And the courts have taken a clear view that the idea of rationing as opposed to price increases to solve a supply and demand problem is far more socially equitable than increasing the price. Increasing the price just makes the product available only to the wealthy. So as I said earlier, the idea is we would prefer the rationing and distribution of it to equally retailers serving different communities and making it available to different communities, especially lower income communities. And that is preferable to putting up the price. And if you do put up the price, then the price gouging precedent is such that we will come after you. I mean, what helps at this stage, it is a breaking and rapidly breaking situation. So we do ask consumers to approach us if they feel that they're being unfairly exploited, so that we can investigate as well.
Yeah.
But we do rely on consumers out there to keep us informed.
Have you received any complaints as yet? And from, again, the preliminary investigations, at least that you have on your end, have you noticed an increase in the price of eggs?
We've started to get some complaints through the public, and people have also been posting on social media. But today we haven't concluded any investigation. So at this stage, nothing to comment on from that perspective.
Okay. Because there is a low supply of eggs, and eggs are not just necessarily for consumers, this is now the end user, but then you also have bakeries and so forth. Does the Competition Commission look into what agreements and negotiations bakeries would go into with suppliers of eggs to make sure that you still have enough supply that is available to the end user?
I think, Aldrin, you've raised an important point, and this is a complex situation because eggs are used as an input to other baking products. And so it is something we're considering right now as to that balance. But it may be that some of those contracts remain in place and the egg producers do try and strike that balance between end consumers. But some of those goods, such as bread, might also be a necessity as well. And so it is quite a complex aspect to manage. Yep. We do think that this is something that the industry also has to manage and find that balance and work its way through.
Yeah, because it also speaks to the ripple effect, because if the price of eggs go up, that means that the price of these baking products will also go up. And as you've indicated now, one of the essential products, speaking about bread here, their price might also go up as well.
Yeah, and that is something we've got to keep an eye on as well. What we've been saying, and this has been a subject since our food price monitoring, essential food price monitoring, since the beginning of the pandemic, where we've seen a series of shocks. And this is just yet another shock to the food system, unfortunately, that is going to hurt your poorest households, but hurt the broader economy. But what we've seen in that context is people will say, well, there is now a shock to the system. We expect prices to go up, and they push prices up much higher than actually are warranted. And so it is something we're going to have to keep an eye on as well. As you rightly say, that those who use eggs as an input don't try and pass on unreasonable price increases for their products on the basis that eggs have gone up and some of their inputs. We need more transparency from these players as to how their costs have changed and therefore what sort of price increase is warranted. And we think those producers should be accountable to the public on that score and keep it in the public domain so that people are well informed.
Yeah. And in this particular case, it's almost like it's a triple shock. So you have the avian flu that we're dealing with, and then on top of that, you also have the load shedding that we are dealing with, and then the increase in diesel prices as well. And I wonder if we could find a situation where retailers argue, as well as the poultry industry argue, that but we had to increase our prices, sometimes even by double, 25%, because of the triple shock that I just spoke of.
So when we look at it from a price gouging, we look at the retailer margin on that particular product. And we also in the past have also looked at the rand margin, not just the percentage margin. And the real question, I think, Aldrin, is, we may have an increase in the cost. Let's say we have an increase in the cost of eggs, but has the shelf space cost changed? And so is it warranted to grow your rand margin substantially on something that's in scarce supply? And so we haven't been that sympathetic to those sort of arguments previously. And in previous shocks, even after the initial wave in COVID, to garlic, ginger, where there were big supply shocks on the production of those products that caused them to spike, we did engage the retailers and reach an understanding around containing just their rand margins as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. That is the Chief Economist at the Competition Commission, James Hodge. So yeah, shelves running empty with those eggs. So some people saying they pay over 200 Rand for a tray of around 60 eggs. What's your experience around the price of eggs?